We on? Okay, good morning, Miss Fiona. It is the second day of August at 8:30, and we can do the attendance.
So online we have Doc Horton for Metroplex. Michael Auerbach is our part-time building inspector who's listening in. We have Marie Bosman who can just talk a little bit about the logo public hearing. Chairman Delarada, Aaron Cassidy Dorian, Beth Greenwood's walking down the hallway here, Elena Finnan, Clark Henry, Dart Schroeder, myself, Laura Robinson, and Trish looking at me.
Very good. And do we have anybody that would like to make some comments from the public?
Michael, did you want to talk or are you just listening? You're muted. Michael, you're muted.
Now?
Yeah, now we can hear you.
I have no comments, but I did want you to know that Jim McKinney is waiting to be let in.
I don't see him, but I'll look. Thanks, Michael.
Okay.
And that brings us to the June 7 minutes. But do we have everybody in the meeting? Was there somebody trying to get in?
Yeah, Michael. In the waiting, I don't have any ability to let him in. Can you have him just copy and paste the meeting in his browser and try again?
Yes, will do.
Thank you.
Very good. The minutes of June 7th, 2024. Do we have a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve it.
I will second. Any comments? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed?
Aye.
And that passes unanimously. That brings us to June 28th, 2024. It's actually the July meeting. And is there a motion to approve those minutes? Will second?
Yeah, you should try cutting and pasting again. She doesn't see you on the waiting list. Do you have the link?
All in favor of the June 28 meeting minutes? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And those pass unanimously. Off to the resolutions.
Okay, so the first thing we have is at the last meeting, the town board called for a public hearing on the town logo. I think Marie has already done a pretty good presentation for it, but I can put it up on the screen, and then if anybody has any questions, what we're planning on doing is Marie will do a little introduction of the logo for anybody who's at the public hearing that hasn't heard the introduction of the logo, and then allow for the public comment. Sorry, my computer is being really slow, but go ahead and read.
For the public hearing, we were thinking, so as Laura said, there was a long presentation at the town board meeting, and so we won't do that whole presentation again. It's available for anybody to look at. But what we thought, and please, your input is greatly valued if you have ideas, but we thought as a work group, we would briefly touch on what the community told us. Just to remind them of the community survey that we did. Since this is a public hearing, so we'd like to have that in the presentation, maybe just one slide with the highlights of that, which actually was in a previous presentation. And then we'll just go over what the logo means. And then we'll mention briefly.
I'm sorry.
We'll briefly mention that there was a deliberate process, step by step, and that we tried to be thorough in collecting data, but we won't go over all those details again. And of course, if people have questions, we can elaborate on any of that. Yeah, so those are the three things. So just briefly, community survey. This is briefly how our process looked, and then here's the logo, and then in detail, a little bit more detail, describe what the logo means.
I think that's perfect. I think highlighting the community comment is really good too, because
Yeah,
I think that survey was super useful.
yeah, it definitely was extremely useful and it drove our final recommended design for sure. How much time should we?
So there isn't like a time limit. I would say what you need to get that across.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Definitely trying to keep it as short as possible, but also I don't want to just rush over it. People,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because like we posted in the newspaper and on the website, I believe. So there's a fair chance that there's a number of people who may not have seen it or
The logo.
Yeah.
presentation.
Mhm.
yeah.
Do we put the video or just the deck?
I don't even have the deck on the public hearing.
Okay, should we do that or no?
I don't know. Up to you guys. I always figure that a lot of times, theoretically, if you see a public hearing, you don't know that much about it. So you come and then, so it's good to have a little, it's the planning board principle. But you have a little bit of intro at the beginning and then you can listen to people.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's fine.
Yeah. Okay.
I just want to comment that I remember reading about the new logo and some of the response to it. I really like it. I think it's just absolutely fine. And I think it's a step forward for the town.
Thank you very much. I'm so glad you like it. Don't take that for granted.
I like it too. I got made fun of because I like the hair and the best of them all. And I got chosen. All right. So I know everyone said it, but I'm very grateful for all the work that you did. I saw a couple of meetings that you guys were at, just while I was going to another meeting. And Jocelyn is of course on our comprehensive plan, and Dennis was great to work with. So I'm
Yeah,
very glad for all the work that you guys did.
yeah, we had a great time doing it and we're grateful for where we landed at this point. So hopefully everything goes well from here.
Great.
All right. So my next 4 resolutions are appointing people to committees. I have a member of the public who would like to join the Conservation Advisory Council, Joy. I spelled her name wrong on the agenda, of which I am very, very sorry for. It's actually Wang, W-A-N-G. She has been on a natural resources inventory subcommittee with Ashok Ramasubramanian, and she shows up early, stays the longest, has an incredible amount of passion and fullness. She is a mathematician at Union College, professor, and she's just lovely. And I definitely would love to grab her for the CAC if we're able to. We did receive a resume for the Historic Preservation Committee. Rita's not here today. So I will let Rita be the final recommendation person on that. It's a graphic artist who has a passion for Historic Preservation Committee. I know that Rita really desperately needs people. She's having a hard time getting a quorum when they're making recommendations. So as long as there's no objections, I would defer to Rita, but would recommend that if she's okay with that, that we should put another person on the Historic Preservation Committee. She has 4 vacancies right now, so. The 4th one is a resolution appointing members to the Comprehensive Plan Committee. Joy also said she'd be willing to serve both committees. The Comprehensive Plan Committee has gotten really low on people.
We need to.
We really, really need people. Andrew Millspa, he's on our Complete Streets Committee. He's been working on the transportation chapter, but saw that the comprehensive plan needs people. So he's also willing to take on the extra work. If they're willing to do it, we definitely need them.
He's on the tree committee?
He's on the
Yeah.
Complete Street.
Okay, which-
Yeah.
okay.
Love.
Yeah,
Yes, we've
Mhm.
lost.
They leave, they're supposed to be doing letters of resignation.
from the comprehensive plan.
So that we have record of it because otherwise they're on all of our records as far
I mean, I pretty much, which ends up being an email. I have an email from everyone who has said they had to go, so I'll just have to forward
And
them
then
all
we filed to the clerk.
to the clerk. Yep. So I'll do that.
How many are we short on the comprehensive plan committee? Probably 2 or 3?
No.
Yeah, six. Six.
There has been a lot of attrition in the community for a whole variety of reasons, from people moving out of county seat. But it's in fact. Yeah, it was not people.
So
And we've got Aaron comes, Ashok, Joseph, Drescher comes, Jocelyn comes, Dirt, me, Clark, Leslie.
And was like,
we just need.
but we're definitely short
Mm,
on this, and it's not good for a number of reasons. We want to be representative
of the town.
of the town views, so we definitely need more views in there, and also to just the workload. It's
Yeah.
not, it's not distributed.
And people probably can't make every meeting on top of that, right?
Yeah, attendance is not perfect every day.
We did have a lot of kind of double months where we were doing one nighttime public outreach and then one nighttime meeting.
Yeah.
So it was a fair slog for the last couple months with the extra meetings, but theoretically, when we get closer to writing the chapters, like there's gonna have to be even more.
Yeah, we're gonna,
Work group. Stuff time.
that's where the rubber's gonna hit the road. Is when the plan gets finalized and we're starting to really pull it together. Next to now. And it is gonna be a slog. Usually most, at least in the past, people get burned out, I've been burned out last 2 months I've been there. Yeah, we need to have these people appointed. They came to the last comp plan meeting and they'll fit in. They're very good.
Very good.
Andrew actually has experience with other towns' comprehensive plans. His family has an engineering firm, which also provides a lot of good expertise into.
Very good, very good. And I'll see what I can do about recruiting some more feedback for that meeting as well.
I think I have one more person that might be interested in something. I need to follow that.
Okay, and then my fifth one is appointing a member to the tree council. Chet LaSalle has come to the last 3 tree council meetings, I think. Just to listen. He's recently retired. He's a communications specialist, and he would like to join the tree council to help get information out to people about the value of trees. And I think that would be very useful, and he seems ready to go. So for 3 months, I've been working with him at tree council, even though he wasn't a member. I highly recommend him. He seems fine.
Excellent.
Okay, so my last resolution is a resolution adopting the government greenhouse gas inventory. I was just recently submitting all of this to DEC, which we're required to do under our grant, and realized that in our grant, we have an item for a formal adoption. So it's already on our website. It's been had a public kind of presentation at the CAC. But in order to just make sure that we're following all of the rules for DEC, we would need to adopt this. It is essentially just a point in time look across our government on where our biggest greenhouse gas emissions are. It's not a surprise. The consultant said, generally speaking, we're doing pretty well for a town our size. When he looks at other towns' greenhouse gas emission inventories, not super shocking. Our vehicle fleet is the biggest source of greenhouse gas emissions in our town, followed very closely by our wastewater treatment plant. in our administrative services building, which is really basically like town hall. Some of the administration is also in the highway and, you know, where Chris and Patty are, but our largest emitting facilities are the wastewater treatment plant, also very normal wastewater treatment plants. I talked to Matt about it just to make sure that, you know, that all made sense to him. They takes a lot of energy to move water. Water is very heavy. That's why actually the wastewater treatment plant is on top and then the water treatment plant is second there. Just the amount of energy that it takes to move water around the town. And then town hall and highway garage are kind of neck and neck. And then our senior center is doing very, very well at the bottom, hardly emitting anything.
How are they accomplishing that?
I think it's probably because they're only open maybe 2 days a week instead of 5. It is an older building, so I feel like it's mostly got to be the hours of operation. Yeah. But okay. And then our type of emissions, our highest amount of use is electricity. But that's actually a good thing because the grid is so clean in New York State. So if you look at the GHG emissions by GHG source, the electricity and the natural gas are pretty close when it comes to the actual greenhouse gases emitted, but the electricity is 4 times the higher usage. And the reason for that is because it's much cleaner. So you don't have to be alarmed by the high number of electricity. We actually want stuff to move to electricity. It'll be cleaner. If you were to move natural gas type of utilities into the electricity line, the greenhouse gas emissions would go down. But because of the formula that you use to calculate it, and the formula takes into account the electricity grid in upstate New York. So that's a good situation. And the more we can move to electricity, the better there.
Yeah, I think upstate New York, the consultant said that we're 60% green and 40% fossil fuels, which is actually across the nation is actually really good. Or one of the better ones.
So how is electricity better?
Because it's renewable as opposed to fossil fuel.
So every kilowatt hour of electricity that you use to turn the lights on or whatever is going to be associated with a ratio of greenhouse gas emissions. But because the mixture, like we're not burning coal to make electricity to turn our lights on. Like we're using Niagara Falls, we're using solar farms, we're using nuclear. And which is, you know, some people have their feelings on it, but it doesn't emit greenhouse gases. So they put that into the calculations of how many greenhouse gas units are emitted when you turn on your electricity versus when you use a natural gas. A therm essentially like translates directly into a significant greenhouse gas emission. So you only have 66,000 therms, but you're emitting 350 megatons of greenhouse carbon. Whereas like you have 3 million kilowatt hours of electricity and you're only emitting a little bit more greenhouse gas emission. So that's why you want to get things to electric.
Yeah, what's interesting about it is everything is ratio to carbon equivalents. So all the emissions, depending on their source, they have different weighting factors that impact our footprint, greenhouse footprint. So that's kind of interesting. It doesn't really come out in these tables, but when we talked with the consultant, spent a lot of time. So like if you release a refrigerant, that has a huge impact to the greenhouse gas emissions. If you generate with coal, your electrical, it has a big footprint. If you use natural gas, it's less than the board said renewables.
Yeah.
Yeah, so our greenhouse gas inventory is specific to us, a point in time. This is just an inventory of what we're doing now. Our next step is to do a community one. And then after that, we would do a government action plan where we look at what we're doing. And then we come up with actions that can reduce them specific to.
Is what we did to town hall, it must have been 7, 8 years ago. Is that still considered to be efficient, or are there now more efficient things to do than what we've already done?
That's why Jim actually said that we're doing pretty good for a town. Because we've been doing like, we've been doing items, like you hear me say, oh, this is gonna reduce greenhouse gas emissions, like for, 8 years or more. So yeah, it does matter. Like, we converted all of our lights to LED. We have a super efficient boiler down in town hall. All of that matters and counts. And we get credit in the climate action plan, but not necessarily in the inventory, because this is like really just point in time for our solar arrays and stuff like that. Those are not subtracted here. This is just a point in time.
And how does our wastewater treatment plant figure into this, given what we're trying to do with not zero emissions?
No, that's a super good question. So it is supposed to be a net zero facility.
Yeah,
It's supposed to, it's built to have that capability. But it depends on how much waste is accepted and how much and what type it is, I think. In order for it to go into the cycle. So right now it is still emitting methane, and it's always going to need electricity. But the idea is that if you cycle it enough, you can make it net zero. So this is 2023. We have already started some contracts in 2024, but 2023 did not have a lot of contracts, like maybe 1 or 2. But that specific thing that you guys are doing should bring the wastewater treatment plant down over time. So
Right.
that'll be captured in the climate action plan.
And Dan actually spoke to this yesterday in the meeting. They're doing a pilot program right now with DEC to increase what they can bring in. So they've been bringing in what's called fog, fats, oils, and greases for a little bit, but very small numbers of trucks. Just to kind of, that was what their initial permitting was allowing. And now they're expanding to weigh. And they're going to do this pilot project with the weigh, and it's going to ramp up. And that should be able to get the plant to the point where they're able to generate enough, basically of their own electricity over time so that they can start getting closer to the net zero. So they're working with DEC on that pilot project and the permitting for that. But our plant is unusual. So they don't dump it in at the head of the plant like most other plants do. They actually go straight into the digesters, so that the pilot is showing whether or not they need the pre-treatment. And so they're working with that right now. And in the next couple months, they should have a pretty good idea of maintaining the chemistry, which seems to be going well off the initial start. So we're really, just talking to Dan, it really looks good that they're going to start being able to take better advantage of that within the next few months.
excellent.
So, yeah, it's very exciting, actually.
Yes,
Yeah,
thank
so-
you.
It's probably, even with all of that, it may always be on the top, because it's just such a, it's a heavy lift. Any community that you go to, usually, if they have their own wastewater treatment plant, is going to be on the top. But we expect these numbers to go quite a bit down. That's one of the big positives of the extra work we put in the wastewater treatment plant, is that we should see the greenhouse gas emissions go down. It's not yet.
Thank you.
Quick question.
Mhm.
Does anyone write an article about this for the Niskuna paper? Because I think for the town, people here love that we're innovative and that we strive towards excellence. And this is a great example of it. And unless you're sitting here or looking at the recording, which, a small percentage of people still probably do that, this is great news.
Yeah, the climate action plan is gonna be really great, but you
Yeah.
have to do the inventory before you
Yeah.
come up with actions to reduce your greenhouse.
But the fact that we're a town that's actually doing pretty well, will be fun for people to listen.
Yeah,
Yes. No, people like to write about the bad things, unfortunately. And the news travels fast, right? The news.
I feel like we'll have a pretty heavy meeting maybe next month, but if we wanted to, the consultant can come to the town board and talk about this too. It's very interesting. And also, if you really like detail oriented on this, like, you should watch the CAC meeting, because the CAC.
We got in.
Oh my gosh, like really technical, just trying to understand where the numbers are coming in, if we captured everything. And it's always, if we miss something, we're always willing to amend and add in. It is still a draft, but we worked really, really hard on it. And
I mean, this is just the survey. The last phase of this is where we work with the consultant, come up with a plan, reduce the greenhouse footprint. So.
I like the
And-
energy.
Arthur worked really hard making sure the consultant
Okay.
has all the numbers.
Certainly, this report certainly is impressive. However, one of the things, if we're talking about trying to show that we're improving with in terms of greenhouse gas emissions, we want to be able to show some data over at least 2 or more points in time. And so, in essence, it's great to see that relative to perhaps other places, but here in Niskayuna, let's say if these data are for 2023, then say if we can show that from 2020 to 2023 or whatever, some earlier period, there's been a significant decrease in greenhouse gas emissions, that I believe is one of the better ways to demonstrate that we actually are improving the environment here in the town. So we need to have some type of time component, at least 2 or more points in time.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Unfortunately, it's pretty hard to do because it's not just looking at energy bills. We're looking at gas tanks filled. We're looking at propane deliveries. We're looking at like he talked with the wastewater treatment plant guys on the ins and outs of the wastewater treatment plant. He talked to Charlie about what work was done on the HVACs during 2023. So we can do energy benchmarking because we've been keeping track of our energy bills since 2010, but an actual greenhouse gas inventory, this is our baseline, and then we'll do a climate action plan based on our baseline to reduce it. And then you would do one like 5 years from now, showing that you've achieved a greenhouse gas inventory reduction.
Okay. Yeah, at least going forward, that should be kept. Now you mentioned about you can definitely demonstrate the differences in the cost. Okay, right?
In the greenhouse gas emitted by type of, well, yeah, if you reduce greenhouse gas emissions, you will reduce costs, operating costs. Yeah.
Okay, and so for some people, just showing a reduction in costs will in fact be a clear indicator that we're doing better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if you look at the overall emissions, and this is on page 3 of that report, you can see like the electricity is the largest number, but there are also some other large numbers like gasoline and diesel. And I'm talking about the impact on the greenhouse gas once you weight it. So, there are avenues where I think the town, for example, if you move more towards electricity for your fleet and stuff, there's benefits there that you could definitely highlight. But Laura's right, it's definitely more than just electricity. It's other factors as well.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Well, again, I think the report is great. I'll just certainly going forward, we want to incorporate some type of time component so people can actually see that improvement.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think that's the best way to present the data.
Thank you, Doc.
My pleasure.
How are we doing with Ray and any conversion from gas to battery operated equipment? Does that figure into this or?
It will, because right now his blowers and his things use gasoline, and we got a $10,000 grant to get the electric landscaping equipment.
Which probably won't be a lot of it for town.
Quite a lot last week. So Pete sent us a list of what he wanted. Found a place that we can get the exact same stuff a little bit cheaper, so then we're able to get more of it. So Trisha's been running back and forth to Home Depot.
Excellent.
Buying but we should be getting leaf blowers, we should be getting pole saws, we should be getting trimmers, and then we're trying for batteries, chargers, and possibly one push mower, which we haven't told Pete yet. Because we saved the money that we think we can get it. They all run out of the same batteries, so you just get to charging stations and you just pull the batteries and put them in. But it's also good for the guys because they're not breathing in the fumes from the gasoline
It's
from the
quieter.
engines, and it's
Yeah.
quieter. Yeah. So we're really excited that they're working with us on that, and I would say we're probably about a week away from the purchase. Yeah.
So there are electric motors and battery operated. Is one better than the other one as far as environment is concerned?
Battery operated are electric, generally speaking. I mean, there's cord leaf blowers and there's cordless, but they're both using electricity.
Okay. 'cause
Yeah,
you
the
gotta
battery's
recharge
just
the
storing the
battery.
electricity and then you don't have to have a cord. Yeah, but they're essentially the same.
And for our application, we don't have outlets everywhere we plug these. So
Yeah.
the battery's the way to go.
Yeah, oh yeah, without a doubt.
Mhm.
And well, they seem to be not as noisy as the cord ones. Maybe that's just me.
It's supposed to be, it's just getting better.
We're
It's
certainly a
durable,
lot
too.
less loud than the schools.
The durability is the gas one.
Yeah.
According to all the write-ups.
Well, they're the worst because they're such small engines, so they spew out.
Yeah, it's
Water. All right, what's next?
Okay, so the next thing in your package is the proposed short-term rental code that the planning board has been working on. The planning board is still working on it, but it's come to the place where it's in a form that they can put it out to the public and the public can comment on it. It proposes to license short-term rentals in the town. It's a pretty heavy lift in terms of you gotta provide the town a lot of information on safety, on number of bedrooms, on the requirements for being licensed. We're essentially taking the unhosted rentals, which are, I mean, kind of a sort of predatory practice where you buy the house, you never expect to live in it, and you know that you're just gonna be renting it out 365 days a year. Those types of rental purchases of those things are causing problems in New York State for raising the housing costs, making it harder to have an affordable neighborhood because people are willing to pay more for the home when they are going to have it be an income property, and so it takes it away from people who would be buying it to live in the community. And also it has a number of nuisance elements, so there's nobody who's living there all the time, not just Niskayuna, all the towns kind of tend to have problems with noise, trash, parking, thank you. So this code really limits unhosted rentals to very small areas of town, where it's basically commercial, and then if you choose to have a house in that area that is an unhosted house, it's not really a neighborhood, so hopefully that would limit the issues with unhosted. This is mostly a code that is going to regulate hosted rentals, so the requirement would be that you have to stay in the house while you're renting it. It has a limited number of bedrooms that are allowed to be rented, and the idea is that if you're there, it's your house, you have to stay overnight with the people that are in your house. You're not going to be having loud parties, you're not going to be having traffic problems. We're limiting the number of people, so you should not be having 12 cars in the road, and you have to park on site, and you're not allowed to have guests at an Airbnb. So that is our best try for not a complete taking of private property rights, because that never goes well in the courts, but making it strict, trying to protect the character of our neighborhood, limiting the problems that come from housing, escalating costs of houses when you have the unhosted rentals, and it gives my department the first chance of being able to enforce this, which I think will help with a lot of issues that we've been hearing. It may not be perfect. I am recommending it at this point because I do feel like it will give me the tools that my department needs to enforce some of the issues that we've been hearing. And then if it does need to be modified down the road, of course we can. It's out for public hearing, so there's lots of options still to change it, but it's in a form now that I really highly recommend people read and then start giving up comments. And it'll be going to the internet.
How did we get to the 184 days per calendar? Just curious.
That is just, I think, a basic, that's your resident. Like, if you go to New York State or whatever, if you spend 184 days in New York State, you are in New York State. If you want, you can claim New York State as your resident.
Laura, I've been going through it, as I say, here, I have a lot of comments.
Mhm.
Do you want me to submit them directly to you?
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll,
Quick side question, this August 26th date for a public hearing, that's for that law.
at the planning board.
The logo, public hearing is August 22nd.
Yes.
Okay.
Because
So that was
the logo public hearing is at the town board. This one is at the planning board. Yeah, they go back to back. That's why you always see me at town hall at night. So that's the idea. I talked to the neighbors about it. I know they have some comments. So the August 12th meeting is the resolution that'll call for the public hearing. And then August 26th would be holding the public hearing. So we can make internal changes to make sure that it's good on the 12th and then we'll hold it on the 26th. Don't want to wait too much longer because we do want to have a code in place for the next summer.
Very good. Thank you, Laura, and Trish, and everybody else. This was a pretty fast work.
The planning board has been working super hard on it.
Yeah, like that. And hopefully we'll get that passed in short order.
And honestly, the residents also, they give us good comments that we try and take into account in the code too, so.
They have been very active. I'm
They-
surprised there's not a couple more on today.
Yeah, they listened and then they do have comments. I know at the very least is one of the residents wants to have even less bedrooms allowed. So we'll see what happens, but it's ready to go out anyway for comment. The committee for appointments did meet. I did not get a copy of the policy in time for this meeting, but I can circulate it to you guys. We made some updates, like it's kind of standard practice for the alternates at the planning board to automatically go to the regular position when it gets vacated, but it wasn't written in our policy, so we added something for that. We added criteria for evaluation of the performance of the appointees so that we have kind of a rubric if something's going wrong. We haven't had that in the past, so I think that's very helpful. And then it has things like we've already been doing, posting the openings online, circulating the resumes prior to our meeting, all that stuff is in there. And there's a process for evaluating them at the end of the year for reappointment. So I'll get that out to you guys.
Good.
Planning board. Clerk, since David's not here, can you just go through the planning board agenda?
Okay, sure. Very quickly, the community bank is pretty straightforward. That's in Mohawk Commons. They were adding a little more green space to their parking area. I think they're removing 9 parking spaces and adding a little more green space at Laura's request and the planning board's request, just to get rid of some of the sea of asphalt that's in there. There's plenty of parking in there, so we're going to gradually try to get a little more green space in there as the opportunity presents itself. And then there's 2 projects that we've talked about at the highway department meeting and the Matt's meeting for water and engineering. That is Pierce Road, 929 Pierce Road. That's a proposed 2-lot subdivision. It'll be kind of a flag lot, which there are several of in the general area of Pierce Road. So the planning board is considering that, but it's also in an area that has drainage challenges, particularly poor soil. So the building and planning department, highway department, and engineering department are working very closely on any projects that involve stormwater and drainage, because we have some pinch points in the town where that's a acute issue.
Mhm.
So they'll the planning board will take a very close look at stormwater for 929. The next project is 1045 Palmer Ave.
That's in the R2 zoning district where lots are typically 40 feet wide by a little over 100 feet deep. So this happens to be a double lot right now that's 80 feet wide. And the owner is proposing to subdivide that into two lots. So it will end up being, if it's approved, it would end up being two 40-foot wide lots.
And right now, both are vacant
No, there's one home,
on.
there's one home on one lot with basically an empty lot next.
And that's in R3.
It's in R2.
Or
So
two.
what's the minimum lot size?
80.
80? Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
Minimum one.
Lot width.
Lot width.
So their lot would be.
Oh, is it
The lot-
80 or 40? Did I say 40?
No, so they're proposing 240-foot lots.
Right.
The minimum in our code right now is 80, so they need area variances. But all of the homes around John Palmer are 40.
Oh, okay. That
So-
puts it in context.
Yeah,
Yes.
And that because of the time it was built.
because of the time it was built. Yeah, so all of those lots on Palmer are pre-existing non-conforming.
Trying to think of what ours is in Hexham Gardens. Is it 100?
Yours is 100.
100.
Your R1. Yeah,
Yes. That's
I can 80.
oh. All right.
So that's that.
Thanks, Doug.
Yep.
Zoning board right now has 3 cases, all residential area variance requests. And, I have talked to Elena because there's one person that wants to bring a, request for extensions. So we'll probably just put it at the beginning, I'm guessing, but I need to double check with you because we don't get a lot of requests for extensions. And then the grants update, do you want to talk about Lions Park? No? Okay. So Clark has been working really hard with the Architectural Review Board and Jim McKinney on Lions Park and Rita. And I believe that they're working towards a full grant for rehabilitation of the structure. We're wrapping the deck up with the building at this point and trying to get a bigger grant to address the entire thing at one. Hoping that the deck is, important, but it would be a shame to do the deck and then leave the building. So the idea is they've been doing a lot of inventory of the building, and then I think we're trying to submit for a grant this fall to fix the deck, to make some help to the roof, some structural touching up of the outside. The one thing I really like is that Jim McKinney is an architect, and he took a look at the existing deck and was able to create plans for a new deck that are ADA accessible. So when we get there, he did his best because he's a historic preservation architect to blend the ADA accessibility in with the building. And I think it looks great. It's very symmetrical. And so when we get there, we'll have ADA access to that building, which will be really nice.
What will the building be used for?
So that's part of the grant that we have to make sure we know. Like right now we have the artists in residence. We had a lady come to economic development once who wanted to open up a coffee shop there, which got me super excited, but Elena said we can't do that yet. But maybe someday. We have to, as part of the grant, visualize how we want that building to work, because they wouldn't give us the money to fix it up if we don't have a plan for maintenance and to use it so that the public can, enjoy all of the dollars that go into fixing it.
The city of Schenectady, I don't think, ever was able to utilize that concession area that they had right by the Toys Lake, I think it is. I forget the name of it, but really, and when it was open for the short period of time when I was young, it was great.
Yeah.
It was great, and then for some reason, just season after season, they couldn't get a concessionaire in there. Now it wouldn't be as big. That was like hamburgers, and ice cream, all that, but it really does add a lot because it gives the people kind of another reason to go there and go to the park and.
Yeah,
It's
Lions
kind of a
Park
mixed use thing.
is utilized, highly utilized. I mean, there was a
Yeah.
study back in the mid-2000s, and I think it was like 245,000 uses annually. So that it's the busiest part in the Capital District as far as bike path. So
And
there's a lot of throughput there. So
Yeah.
I think it would be actually really nice.
Yeah.
And that is how it's evolved a little bit. I think as Jim McKinney looked at the deck and worked on the deck, one, he noticed that the roof really needs a lot of work. The bay window in the front needs work. So that really prompted him to just say, hey, we really need to assess the rest of this building and see what else we could do. So that's kind of grown into this grant application to preserve the whole
Yeah.
train station. And then part of that, the deeper that Rita dives into it, the use is gonna play a key role, and having a maintenance plan in place that if we give you money to refurbish something, you have to show that you're gonna maintain it, and then 10 years from now, it's not gonna be dilapidated or something. So it's kind of, it's been mushrooming a little bit as the group gets a rope around what's all involved.
Yeah.
But there's a meeting next week to kind of talk about the use a little bit. And every time we go there to do an inspection, you just realize how many people pass by that on the bike trail. There's always people with bike packs on that are biking from Buffalo to Albany or something. It's a very popular spot. So some people have even talked about kind of a historic visitor center type thing with flyers on the bike path or.
And developing that, we put it in line with the longer range plan for the canal bike path. So
Yeah.
the use that.
Absolutely.
For the
Absolutely.
community survey that we did, we asked, one of the big questions was, about landmarks. What do people like? And we put a list together of all 15 places, and the Lions Park was one of the top ones.
So you have a list of landmarks from the committee?
Just from our survey that we came up with.
We complement.
Yeah, that's in the, yes.
It's not, I'm not gonna say our list is comprehensive, I just want.
No, I think it's important because at some point we're going to get to historic and cultural preservation, and it's good that we would know what the values. If you have input like that, that's valuable.
Have you had an opportunity to meet Mr. McKinney at all? Oh, he's done some great things. And we're still.
Yeah, and then Jim McKinney, Rita, and Stacy Thomas from the Architectural Review Board have been putting a lot of work in on the train stations.
Excellent. Well, thank you.
For the critical pedestrian grant, we just had a kind of grant meeting, and Frank is gonna help me do the final submittal for that. The linkage study grant, is just starting, and, I've been working with, Karim from CRTC, who's been extremely helpful. Then you have put together a statement of work, which the Complete Streets looked at, I think, last week. And hopefully that'll go out within the week. And then it has to be out on the street for a month because it's a federal highways grant. And then we should start forming a group to look at, planning, Complete Streets for Route 7. September, October, I would say. So I'm very excited about that.
That's big.
For the, I think we did not get the construction grant on Route 7. That's not super shocking to me. Most of the time you need to have the planning and the engineering done before you can get a construction grant. You know, I'm always happy to try. I'm happy to try for anything. But this is going to be the key to getting the funding for construction in the future. So, getting the public input, getting the concepts out there, getting people on board with what they want to see happen to Route 7, and then starting with the engineering concepts is going to be what we need to get actual shovels in the ground out there. So pay attention to the linkage study. It's very important.
So what form is public input going to be?
So the CRTC is the one that runs it, and they have a very robust public participation plan that they have to follow. And it's not just public hearings. I already told them, we had a really hard time getting anyone from Route 7 to respond to the comprehensive plan survey, but they honestly have people dedicated to it. They themselves, we have like $152,000 grant or something like that, are putting in $30,000 of their own staff time. So they actually put the public participation plan together, and then we help.
Okay, we just need to make sure it's advertised.
Oh, yeah, no, they have, it'll have its own website.
Okay.
The linkage study, the Route 7 study, they all have their own websites. They have certain requirements they have to meet on public participation.
Okay.
So.
Because I know it's a big concern for people along Route 7.
I am hopeful that
Okay.
like, if we have some design plans that people can see a concept that may be more motivating to them to come and talk. As if we're just saying a question, what do you want to see with Route 7? It's open-ended and they're like,
Yeah.
I don't know, I don't want my children to die. You know, like, but if you actually have like concepts, you might be able to get,
Yeah, I think you're right.
yes.
To threaten to cut through street, that'd get some people showing up.
If you really want to be at that meeting.
So Complete Streets, working with the county on Grand Boulevard and still trying to get the plans for the painting stripes and the bump outs at the intersections. The police had a question about that yesterday, so I'll keep trying to get that from the county. Still working on updating the transportation chapter of comprehensive plan. They had a good meeting. We're just making sure that they are very passionate and focused on bicycles, pedestrians, and transit, but we still need to accommodate cars in our comprehensive plan. So they're just going back to the old comprehensive plan and making sure that they cared for any tough intersections. Had a discussion at the last Complete Streets meeting that even though we love traffic circles and highly, highly, highly recommend them, the Rexford one seems to have a higher number of accidents. So, you know, something like a comprehensive plan is a good place to serve with. This one in particular has a higher number of accidents. So maybe in the future, New York State can look at reconfiguring the access for Aqueduct Road onto the circle, something like that. They had a bike rodeo on June 15th that was very successful. Trish was pretty much entirely responsible. I ended up being sick for it and didn't get to go first time, but had a lot of people, a lot of good pictures. People were excited, and it went really well. So
Much better than I expected, I must say. I didn't think it would be that.
A lot of
There
people,
was a lot of
and they
people.
stayed like the whole time.
That's awesome.
well, free pizza and ice cream.
That helped.
I know. Tree Council finished the Regent Street pilot planting program on Regent Street. One of the trees died. We weren't 100% sure why. And Northern did place it for us because the homeowner was watering it and everything. So thank you to Northern for that. And then the highway crews went out and replanted it. So in the heat. So thank you to the highway crews for all of the planting that they did on that street. The residents, they call me a lot actually to say thank you, which I keep trying to pass on to the highway department.
The
And
residents on Regent Street.
Mhm. yeah. And I actually don't have it as a bullet point, but we're working really hard on the master plan. I am hoping that we'll have it done possibly, if not the end of this month, end of next month, which then we can present to the town board and then make sure that it's at least recognized in the comprehensive plan. You want to do CAC?
I
Clint?
do, yes. So one of the things that the Climate Smart Task Force does, which is part of the CAC, is to submit climate smart objectives, and that's why we got the $10,000 grant for the electric equipment, and stuff like that. So we're continuing to look at these particular opportunities, and the greenhouse gas program fits into that as well. So when we complete that, we'll end up hopefully qualifying for more money. So we're following that. The NRI, we got the first report back from the consultant, and I have to say I was extremely impressed with the level of detail. And I actually think it's going to be an excellent tool for the town going forward, because not only did it look at the individual parcels that you walk through, but also the surrounding parcels as well. So it gives a whole context of how this particular open space is in relationship to the surrounding area, which I think is going to be a really important planning tool for the future.
Do we have a date for that walk?
There's another walk coming up in August. I think it's like 25th.
I
26th.
I definitely want to get out.
They are very fun.
Yeah, I would highly encourage
Yeah.
you to do that. I have not been able to go on the walks on this phase, but for the first phase, when you walk through an area with a naturalist, it's a whole education. And I walked through the former landfill last time we went through this, and I can't believe everything that's in there. All the wildlife, everything, both, you know, the plants and stuff, but also the birds and everything like that. So it's actually really informative. So I would encourage people to go.
Yes.
I don't think there's a single person that has regretted going on one of these walks. I think it's really, really good.
So it's Saturday, August 17th.
Okay, it's
I
early.
recommend the 9 a.m. one to the people who just want to go on a nature walk and meet our naturalist. Because there's trails for that one. That's at Fieldstone Park, parking the parking lot next to 187 Fieldstone Drive. Then from 11 to 1, they're going to meet at Brendan Lane, which is actually kind of an access, and the town owns land along there, but it does connect into the Rice Sanctuary. And then, oh no, that's not true. Brendan Lane? No, Brendan Lane.
No, it's an area between,
Over
I thought it was the area
Avon Crest
between,
North.
the
Yeah.
two roads. There's the area there.
Oh, yeah, okay, no, sorry, you're right.
Is-
So
is
that
it that
does
one?
connect into the right section, sanctuary, if it's over by Mohawk. Yeah. Yeah, so Brendan Lane will be another good one. And then 2 p.m. is Avon Crest North, Shannon Boulevard, that area that is basically kind of the south, Glacier Kill.
Brendan Lane was from when, 11,
Brendan Lane is from 11 to 1. Yeah, that's the closest one to your house. Yeah. That's over in your neighborhood.
Yeah, sometimes you walk on trails. We went by Stanford Heights and we walked through a
It's really
swamp.
fun.
And there were no trails. No, it's kind of mucky. And,
Where appropriate footwear.
Wear appropriate footwear.
Where appropriate.
So we spent a lot of time discussing that at our last meeting. I thought it went very well. I'm very, very impressed with the reports. Greenhouse gas, initiative, we talked to the consultant for a very long time, going through what he had found with the town. And then again, talking about future actions that that the committee might recommend for the town to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. We're working on some more submittals. There's various rounds of grants. So this is the third round. Hoping to get, if you want to add something to that, well,
The greenhouse gas inventory did give us enough points with our other actions to submit for a bronze award, so I did do that submittal. I don't know if we'll get it, but we had enough points to try,
how
so
much is that?
it's a designation, but it does open up the ability to apply for additional higher tier grants.
I think it as like a video game, you reach different levels and you get more points. Not that I'm a video game,
No, that is kind of how it works.
That's it.
but, and then there was an electric vehicle, demonstration and festival on July 20th. Again, I was unable to attend, but I think it was well attended.
Yeah, I went to both of them and I thought this one had slightly more people. It ran at the same time as the farmer's market and there were like balloons and it was a bigger farmer's market. So, yeah, there was I know, because I was bouncing back and forth between my Girl Scout troop and that, but there's a number of people who came over and they were talking to the people and asking them how it worked and learning about the vehicles. And there's a number of different types of vehicles there, which was cool. And it's always also like just a good time for even just the EV owners to be like, oh, there's a new charging station in Massachusetts, like you should go try it. I made it to here. I said this at the town board meeting. I wanted my dad to bring, because he has a Tesla that tows an RV, so that people could see that you can tow an RV. Like we just went in Camden, Pawtucket, and he's really big on zero emissions. And yeah, the whole way, just with the Tesla and the RV.
Wow.
But he was in North Carolina.
What
And
kind
he
of
was like,
Tesla?
you can drive it, Laura. And I was like, no.
What kind of Tesla was it?
He has a Model Y. Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, and he bought an RV for it. The RV company installed the towing hitch on it because I guess they're really good at doing that. And he actually bought it in Canada and then he drove it back to the United States and now he drives around with his zero emissions camping, glamping system. Because people are starting to be kind of used to the electric vehicles, but even when we were charging on our way to New Hampshire, now if a Tesla drives by or a fancy electric car drives by, people don't really turn their head, but people were turning their head when we were charging at a charging station with an RV behind all the people that were walking by were just walking by really slowly. It'd be really fun to have it at the festival next month.
And then the last item we've been working on is that when projects come before us, we always go through a list of requests like pesticide-free. Have you considered using LED lights for your outside lighting? You know, solar panels and stuff like that. And we really want to develop a list as a committee. So when developers come in, we can provide them with the list up front and they can consider it. Because a lot of times by the time they get to us and we're looking at a plan, they may have already made some engineering decisions about the parcel or what they're going to do. And that sort of can negate or make it a lot harder for the developer to adapt to some of the concerns that the CAC has. So I think it's going to work a lot better to have a checklist of CAC items, and it's also going to enable us to be consistent with all the projects that come in. So it's just a way to be really transparent about what our desires are. These are not things that are necessarily in the law. They're more, I think, nice to have. Someday they may be part of our zoning code, but they aren't now. So, you know, they're more high wants and asks.
More like guidelines and policy at this point.
Yeah. Like, did you think about, can you fit?
Yeah.
Because the technology, in my perspective, the code always lags the technology and where people are going. I mean, it's just the nature of the way things work out. So there's no reason why we shouldn't really try to get developers to do things forward looking.
It's pretty good lag too. It's probably like a 5-year lag.
Oh, I think it's more than that.
Is
It can be. It can be.
Yeah.
The problem is that it's very expensive to update the code. It's a very considerable process. I mean, I think really from the perspective of the comp plan, at least the 2 comp plans that I've been on prior to the one we're working on now, the recommendation has been that we need to update our zoning code comprehensively across the board, but that's really expensive.
It hasn't been done really since 1971 though, so.
Yeah. Wow. But we're reactive rather than proactive.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
Which is true of most governments, but we try to be a little bit right.
Yeah, I'm not throwing mud anywhere in the room. Just saying that, you know, the water issue is very expensive.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Clark brings that point up to me, that governments tend to be a little reactive, and I think he's the one that pushes us to be the most proactive that we can be.
It's not only governments, I think it's organizations.
Yes, no, I know, but there's really something to be said to recognize it and try and do better.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, care is reactive. I mean, is there really preventive health care? You know, not really.
Depends on your doctor.
Well, you know, it goes with your theme. If there's a problem, you hear about it.
Yeah.
If everything's going well,
Yeah,
you don't, right?
It's true. No news is good news.
So we sort of covered the ARB with the line first, unless you had anything you wanted to add.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you want to jump to compromise?
Real quick, we have gotten all the feedback from our public hearings and our survey, and we have started really looking at the results. We have a word wall that was done by a truck that was very sophisticated. We spent a lot of time doing it, and we're really trying to tease out some of the free-forming comments, and we're going through the process. It's very informative. Some things are surprising, some things are not surprising, but really demonstrate that we're viewing where the town wants to go in the
Mhm.
right direction, and there's a lot of residents that support that. So more to come on that.
All right.
I wanted to put the stuff that Ashok put together, but he has to get permission from Union in order to formally share that with us. But he's using like specialized analysis software. It's really cool.
That's great. I'm anxious to see that.
Yeah, it's more than just like taking and picking words and making the repetition. You got to go through a whole process where you pull out like words that just appear in sentences, like, you know,
Mhm.
articles and stuff like that. But then there's other stuff that you have to do in order to make sure that, you know, someone might say tree or trees, but there's a context in that, and you have to sort of shake out that nuance. So it's actually a lot more involved than just pressing the button. And he's been using some pretty sophisticated software, which we're thankful for. The RFP, we are still hoping to get an RFP placed to help the committee primarily at the back end with the assembly, and that's where the heavy lifting generally is for the comprehensive plan. And right now, the last meeting, we really looked at preservation. We had a very good discussion about preservation techniques for the town to fund open space and fund recreation opportunities within the town. And we're moving on with our work. You know, really, when you look at the comp plan, there's a couple sections that are really the big sections, and the recreation open space is one of those really big sections, along with the transportation as well.
That includes the parks, right? Parks,
Yep.
recreation, open space, yeah. Well, that's why our parks are so bloody nice, because of that last comprehensive plan.
We have
There's a lot of
built,
emphasis on that.
we have built on a long history of the town being proactive with parkland.
It shows.
That's so interesting. It's truly what we've seen as well. People absolutely treasure that, what we have, and having built it over a long time.
That comes out in all the surveys, and
Absolutely.
it's really important, and that was the purpose of the NRI. It's really important to understand what the town has, because in the future, there's still going to be some more development, but you know, open space is a known resource. So once it's gone, it's gone. So we got to just make sure that the decisions we make in the future are well informed. That's really key. So I'm done, so we can move on.
Clark, that every year, mid-year, he puts together a metrics report, just kind of showing where we're at. We're running a little late, so I think we'll bring it back to the next meeting. And then, I don't really have too many updates for the planning department, except that we are still meeting regularly with consultants on the drainage analysis and of some hotspots in town. And, you know, my geeky side really loves the idea of creating this model of all of the rainfall in Niskayuna, and then being able to figure out what you can do to redirect the water. I have had a couple of good training sessions on the New York State level on the way that this model works. We're not sure what the cost is though, and we still don't have an estimate.
Sounds very cool. But we're working on it.
Research, yeah, that's cool.
I love models. So, okay. Dr. Horton, did you want to do a presentation or any updates from Metroplex?
Actually, over the last 60 days, there have been no new projects for Niskayuna to come before us. However, what I would like to suggest is that, if not necessarily our next meeting, but sometime early fall, we invite Ray Gillen back.
Okay.
And the reason is because not only is it good for us to see how the town of Niskayuna's development fits in the broader context of Schenectady County, but I think it's also important for a general public to be educated about the role of the Metroplex and how it actually facilitates our growth and development here in Niskayuna. And so I can talk to Ray, and perhaps if not at our September meeting, our October meeting, to see if he can come in and to give us not only an update, but also we can perhaps get a preview of some things that are happening that we could possibly even take advantage of, or at least we can understand how our development fits into the broader development of the county.
Oh, I think that would be great if you can talk to him.
I
Yeah.
will.
If anything he can make, I'll make the space for him. I always think that's a great idea.
If you recall the last time, he just gave an absolutely wonderful presentation. I think he educated us all about our town because his knowledge is so encyclopedic. It's just phenomenal. So that's what I will do. I'll contact Ray, and we'll see if we can get that set up for, if not our September meeting, our October meeting.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Elena left, but I know that she's been working hard on a couple of the cases that are still pending from the zoning board and in the legal world. And we've set out a couple of informations to the court for some building issues. So on top of everyone else giving her a ton of work, we're also keeping her on her toes. And then Rita wasn't able to come today too. I did want to share, we've been emailing each other because there's this guy that came in, I think yesterday or 2 days ago, and he was talking about Edison blocks, and I didn't know what that was, so I asked him, and he said they're actually blocks that were developed by Thomas Edison. In addition to, you know, discovering the light bulb and all the other things that he did, he was very obsessed with a type of construction that was way ahead of its time, although it never actually took on, but it was like fireproof because there was like an air break between the concrete blocks and insect resistant, and he thought it'd be cheap and a good way to get people affordable housing. And there was a home in the town of Niskuna that was built with these Edison blocks, and one of the guys brought us pictures of it. It was unfortunately demolished.
I was gonna say, can you tell us where it is?
It was demolished in 1996, so no one here has to feel bad that they didn't protect it. But really cool stuff. So she was then researching where some of these Edison bricks have been built. Most of it she could find was like Pennsylvania, but she is going to see if we can find some existing homes in the town, you know, with these Edison bricks.
That's very cool.
Yeah, we were just really excited about it. We were just sending emails back and forth. It was pretty fun. So that's all I have. Sorry that it went a little long, but it was great meeting.
What? Thank you all, and thank you again, Ms. Harden, great work, and hopefully we can get you involved in some other committees. Okay, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you, Beth.
Thank you. John, you want to adjourn the meeting? John?
What meeting is this?
Second.
Thank you again.
Take care, everybody.
Thanks for having me. Have a good day, everyone.
Yes, me too.
Yeah.
Gotta be official before we hit that record button off.